तन्हा दिल घबराता है नीता दर्द जगाता है आ जाओ तुम जल्दी से दम घुटता सा जाता है इसलिए मैंने टेलीफोन किया है इसलिए मैंने टेलीफोन किया है हेलो हेलो हेलो
अभी तो करती तैती है अभी नहीं मैं आ सकती दिल को जरा संभालो ना अभी तो मिलके आई हूँ किस लिए तुमने टेलीफोन किया है किस लिए तुमने टेलीफोन किया
I was saying our community has an issue when it comes to turning out to vote. So that's why I always emphasize early voting. So early voting is October 28th to November 5th. In this district, it's taking place at Resorts World Casino. And I encourage everybody to come out and vote then because you have Saturday and Sunday voting as well. And that's at the casino. And then you also have the regular election day, November 7th. But we have to turn out and vote. Our community, we love to complain, but we don't love to turn out and vote. And that's why we can call it Little Guyana. You can have all the street signs you want, Guyana, Trinidad, whatever. We're a West Indian community that has no representation. Our immigrant community has no representation because we don't turn out and vote. We complain, but we don't vote. And it's so important. You have to get out and vote. These local elections affect you more than anything else. People, they line up, they vote for president, they vote for governor. At the end, Trump and Biden.
Folks make a difference in our community.
Exactly. Right?
And I have to bring up one topic, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, at the end of the day, like, Trump and Biden, they're not fixing your roads. You have a problem with your road, you have a problem with your sanitation, you got a problem with your neighbor and the parking and whatever.
You got a problem with the garbage not being picked up, the street not being
the sanitation,
cleaned.
your local schools, your local public safety, because the Democrats defunded the police, all of that, you have to vote at the local level for that.
Well, the police department is a whole new level because I ups a few of them recently because it seems like if you make a complaint for noise on music, they will be there within 5 minutes. But call for gun, call for drugs, call for somebody being abused, and this is where I'm going to tag all the police department. Precinct 102, 106, 103, all of you, they come out in Richmond Hill, they harass the residents in our community about music. Do you know music? It's therapeutic. Look at the folks, I should say in Rockaway and Springfield who are doing drugs and making the community very unsafe. Go after them. In fact, yesterday I almost got in an accident because a guy was chased in a car by cops. So I heard also you're not supposed to be doing car chase in local residential area. So what are they doing? We need John. I know he's very, he love his community. He have a lot of questions.
Yeah. No, I'd just say on the issue of the drugs, I don't think it's that the police want to let the drugs go or anything like that. But look, the police are one aspect of the criminal justice system, right? For anybody who used to watch Law and Order back in the day, you remember you have the police, but you also have the district attorney's office, right? And right now in New York City, you've had progressive prosecutors in the district attorney's office who have basically said there's certain crimes that they're just not going after. And the drug crime category is one of those that they're just not going after. So it's not that the police don't want to go after it, it's that the police are not going to waste and expend their resources on something that the DA is just not going to fulfill and go through. And it's very unfortunate in the city right now. That's why you have so much crime in certain areas, especially shoplifting. I speak to a lot of store owners, and they have to deal with the shoplifting issue because the police aren't picking up shoplifters anymore, and they're not going through the process of booking them because the DA is just not going to go through with these charges anyway, so the police aren't going to focus their resources there. That's why we need common sense people in there who will prioritize these quality of life issues, crime across the board, make sure that right now in our city, criminals are treated like victims and victims are treated like criminals. And that's something that has to be reversed. We have to bag the police.
I feel like residents are treated like criminals.
In some
and
issues,
I have video in a few weeks. You guys have to share the link. I have videos and pictures of, and I am making an appeal to the police department. I know all of them. And they need to control our street. They need to make it safer. And they have to stop attacking people for music. They have these cars going out there with mufflers as sound of the helicopter. It's not good for persons who's suffering from heart problem. So make that your target. We're not funding them to come and harass the residents of our community. John, I'll read John's comment. He said,
I was just going to say one more thing with the music. Another way to think. I mean, the police just they don't just show up there for the music. A neighbor had to call,
A
right?
neighbor had to
so I'll
call.
just say, if you want to address the police showing up for the music, we need better neighborly relations around here. I think nowadays everybody has some fight with their neighbor, and that's why when this one has a party, they're ready to say, "Oh, let me go call the cops on this one. The noise is too loud. I'm ready for you now."
Right. But I also know cops that goes to some certain neighbors and, they hang out. So the minute the cop they call the cops. They'll be there in a minute. I timed it sometime. In a minute, they'll be there, the cops. Now, you call them. One night I called because I felt like the community was unsafe. Someone had a gun in the car, and I was driving. I observed that. I called it in, and, it took hours for them to even come out and look at that. So, I'm just putting it out there. I know Mr. John from Queens is always concerned about my program because when the program finished, he uploaded, he edited, and he put it up on his YouTube
John
channel.
is a great guy, one of the nicest guys I've met.
He is our community activist. He does everything for our community. So I'm sure he says, go Rusat. What he says, go for the goal. Speak up against the bad politician in our office, against punishing crimes.
Yeah.
And I want to read John's first comment because, John is an open speaker. Everyone knows how bad he is, but don't be afraid to speak out. Now, is the local folks, I care more about our local politicians and what they could do for us because I feel, and I could call names, how many politicians, and you came in and you said, oh my God, you have all these, persons passed around to your office. What are they doing for our community? I was the first one to put someone on the TV, and you reach out to her over and over, nothing is being done. So, Rusat, tell us your change. It says vote for change. What's your vision?
So, I always say, one of the things I hate is you have all these politicians go around, they say, oh, I'm going to do this, this, this.
Empty promises.
And half of the things they talk about are things they can't even control. So when I answer the question, what can I do? I always focus on what issues are something that I can deal with. A city councilman deals with the local issues. Public safety, sanitation, roads, education. Those are areas that I can work on. So, for example, we take the education issue. In terms of what are the priorities, right now our schools, the public schools in New York, grades 3 through 8, only 37.9% of kids are doing math at grade level. Only 49% of kids are doing reading at grade level. However, instead of focusing on fixing the basics, because right now the scores have plummeted, especially since COVID, the learning loss that you've had since COVID and the lockdown of the schools that the teachers' unions contribute to and the Democrats who listen to the teachers' unions contribute to that. It's at a record low right now, the math and reading loss. But instead of focusing on the basics, you have politicians like my opponent who is more focused on putting in controversial topics like drag queen story hour for ages 3 through 8. You don't need that stuff for young children. These are very controversial issues. When you're older, yes, you can do what you want.
That choice,
right?
but do not put that in their head.
But you don't need to prioritize taxpayer funding and the public schools going towards teaching that when the kids are failing at the basics. Focus on the basics, then you can have time for the extracurriculars later. That's on the issue of education, right? Distributing the funding. In this district, right, District 28 is 100th Street to Guy Brewer, Liberty to Belt, split in the middle by the Van Wyck. You see in this district, it's been represented for the past 30 plus years by Democrats who just prioritize the other side of the Van Wyck. They put all the funding there for education, for the senior centers, for everything. They put it over there. We have the numbers, but we don't turn on and vote, and then we don't get the person in there to do things for us, and then we complain after the fact. But we need someone in there to do for us. Our education, our schools have been failing for decades. John Adams has been failing literally my entire life. And everybody who's listening knows John Adams has been failing forever. The schools on the other side of the Van Wyck, they pour the funding and they just put $500,000 for new computers in schools on the other side of the Van Wyck while John Adams is still failing. You need to patent, for example, you have Epic High School, a charter school that did great things on this side of the Van Wyck. We need more like that.
Do you know why they're getting the votes on other places? Because they give out. The more you hand out to a community, the more they will vote for you. So they want to sit down, not getting a job, but they want to get,
So here's the thing, right? On the other side of the Van Wyck, they do this transactional thing. They go, they vote, they get the handout. On this side of the Van Wyck, we don't vote, we don't get no handout, we just complain after the fact, and then we go, oh, well, politicians, right? So we have to use our vote transactionally too. We have to leverage our vote and say we're going to get this in return. We have to smarten up as a community and leverage the power we have. We have literally tens of thousands of Guyanese, Trinidadian, West Indian immigrant community.
We want all the streets. Let's name all the streets.
You have all the street names you want, but if your seniors aren't getting the proper care, your education, your schools are from education, everything else follows. Every immigrant household knows you say education, but our public schools are failing here. Now, you have to, on top of the senior centers, the senior centers on the other side of the Van Wyck, my opponent literally put $750,000 in new funding for them on the other side of the Van Wyck, while our seniors, they don't get the proper services. So change. I will change it. I'm going to redistribute the funding, make sure we're getting the funding on this side of the banner for our seniors and our nonprofits. Like they've got for the past several decades. We're finally going to get that now. Our sanitation, our roads, we're going to take care of that.
Well, they're doing a good job with the roads. You have to give jackets sometime,
no,
you know.
No. If you drive down
The
111
Van Wyck,
Avenue, if you drive down 111 Avenue, Linden Boulevard, you see more potholes than you could go down those two avenues, see more potholes there than you'll see on the other side of the Van Wyck Pier. The potholes are crazy. So you need to take care of the roads here. And I think anybody who drives in this side of Van Wyck knows the potholes is one of the major issues. And in terms of public safety, my opponent is somebody who supported defunding the police. She still supports defunding the police. She wants to shut down Rikers Island. And if you shut down Rikers Island, her plan would be to let more criminals out of Rikers Island, and then she wants to replace it with community jails, including a jail in Kew Gardens. She wants a jail in Kew. So we don't need a neighborhood jail.
We need them to stay in Rikers. Opponent's house.
Right.
How does she feel about that?
You need them to stay in Rikers. Well, that leads me to another issue I'll get to just now. But you don't need to shut down Rikers Island. We're in a crime crisis. You need to back the police. You don't need to shut down Rikers. You need common sense policies. And what you said just now, put them in the opponent's house. You have a saying, not in my backyard. That's a saying that refers to a lot of people who they support all these policies like the city's reckless policies on the migrant issue or the homelessness issue, and they have so much homeless, so much migrants, but then they don't want them in their backyard. They don't want them in their house. But
Let's
they put
just dump them in Richmond Hill.
But they put them in the low-income community. They say, oh, well, you could take the hit, but I'm not letting my house value get hit.
Right.
And you see the city right now with this migrant issue, the mayor is prepared to cut funding for city agencies 5 to 15% in order to subsidize what he plans to be $12 billion over the next 3 years, $4 billion already spent on an issue that it quite frankly doesn't make sense. Our city has always been welcoming to immigrants. We should always be welcoming to immigrants. But our families came here. We didn't get handouts. Right now, they're giving handouts like crazy.
We work our butt off to get everything we wanted. So it's not fair. I'm in the medical field. I went to the doctor's office the other day, and I forgot my insurance card. So they asked me, where's your insurance? And I said, you guys have it in file, you know. Oh, no, we still need proof of it. Okay, I said, what would you do if someone walked in here without an insurance card? You know, they'll come in and they'll fill out for all the handout they could get. They'll get when you welcome in, you get a cell phone, you get a EBT card, you get everything you want, and you get to stay home and lay in bed while the hardworking folks of our community going out there. I see nurses working 16 hours per day. You know, is that fair? We have folks laying in bed 24 hours and they're having
free handouts. And look, like my opponent supports free Metro cards and free cell phones for every new migrant. You work and pay taxes and you don't get free Metro cards. You don't get free cell phones. The mayor supports free hotels. Now they're doing free hotels with pools, laundry service too for them.
Let's give them luxury.
Right? So it makes no sense.
They didn't have that where they're coming from, so we need to give it to them now.
There's a migrant hotel on the Van Wyck I passed the other day. You see them with brand new cell phones on WhatsApp.
In that area.
It makes no sense. And you know, I saw a comment here, a person saying, I thought New York was safe. It's a similar situation like Guyana. The truth is, Guyana is developing. Little Guyana is underdeveloping. Right now in New York City, they've spent and prioritized improving the ghettos, and we've become a ghetto, quite frankly.
That's right. I have some questions here, and I do want to say I have. I thought New York was safe. It's similar situation like Guyana. Oh, believe me, it's getting worse than Guyana right now in certain areas. Mr. Tyler Singh he said, hey, Rusat, what will you do to improve school safety for our children?
So we have Tyler right here. So if you don't mind, Tyler, could you explain in what particular area are you referencing school safety? Because you know it could go in different ways. I don't want to. I don't want to answer it saying the wrong way, right? No, are you talking about, say, for example, the neighborhoods not being safe, or are you talking about, say, school safety officers not being well equipped, or because I remember the last time I was on here, and there was somebody in the comments who said something that one of their concerns is school shootings and things like that. So, is there any particular aspect of school safety?
Specifically, I'm thinking about the kids themselves. You know, they think about what if they don't come home today. Parents are thinking the same thing. It's like it's thinking about like officers and firefighters.
Okay, so in that sense, I would say then that's more of a general safety issue in which the students then are the most vulnerable, right? So so then I would address that by saying you have to improve the general public safety in that sense because the students are the most vulnerable, right? So you have to improve the general public safety.
I feel attacked. I was in the Springfield neighborhood, and you walked into a store. Everyone, let's talk about this one. This is safety because related to Tyler's question, it might be all these smoke shops open up in front of our schools.
Yeah, and look, right now, you have, like, I used the example John Adams. I was walking by John Adams one day campaign. You see half the kids leave before the last period's even over, right? So the kids are leaving at 1:15 in the day instead of 2:30, right? They're going to the smoke shops. They're going to the values are so out of place right now.
What are our city folks doing for our community?
So, I think there's two parts I want to address, right? So, values are very important, but values have to be taught. Yes, from leadership in terms of the city, but also in terms of home as well, right? So you have kids right now who are doing drugs at a rate you haven't seen before. And when
everyone is driving around high, they're flying high,
so,
they're walking around high,
And when you see...
You're not allowed to drink and drive, but you could drive under the influence of smoking.
So I'll just say something that I see going around this community, right? You see a lot of kids with the vaping. You see a lot of them, their windows halfway down, they're smoking. And yes, on the one hand, there is the city leadership. And I think that the city has failed with regards to values on that. Because ever since Andrew Cuomo legalized marijuana, ever since the city has let it be a Wild West,
I just feel that they put it in certain neighborhoods.
Yeah.
They don't put it in the high-class neighborhood, but they target certain neighborhoods.
So something that I also said while campaigning before is that the weed shop is a new liquor shop. They used to put the liquor stores in the poor areas to have them distracted so they don't see the rotten decline going on right in front of their eyes. Mm-hmm. And that's going on with the weed stores right now. You put them in the low-income neighborhoods so they don't pay attention.
They wouldn't focus on what's going on.
So the other thing I do say is we need parents to have proper values instilled in the kids on drugs.
At your dinner table, encourage them not to, you know what I've been seeing a lot? Everyone is posting up, this person died so young, that person died so young, they fell asleep and they didn't wake up. What are the causes? What are they leading to? What is in the smokes that your children are using? Because when I say these posts under 30, this is like, what's going on?
And one thing I would say, in the UK, Rishi Sunak the other day actually proposed the UK banning vapes. And that's something that I think the city should do. If you look at the city, right? We talk about city leadership.
I feel like it's money-making. Right? And, let's talk about the Food and Drug Administration, the things that they're putting in the stores that's not even supposed to be approved for human consumption.
But since we're talking about smoking and city leadership, the last Republican mayor of the city was Michael Bloomberg. And people will remember Michael Bloomberg made public health a very big issue. And he said, we're going to go after the smoking. And smoking rates declined rapidly under Bloomberg, public smoking rates. There were a lot of restrictions put in offices, with signs put up. You couldn't smoke within certain feet of certain locations. And a lot of public health awareness on anti-smoking campaigns were done. You need leadership to actually say, smoking is bad. We're not going to... And if you see how fast the country declined its smoking rates, and New York City in particular declined its smoking rates during those years, it's an inspiration for what we could do in the future to decline things like vaping and marijuana use as well. However, there's an absence of city leadership. You look at this mayor right now, Eric Adams. Where is he speaking out about on the vapes or the marijuana?
Secondhand smoking is just as dangerous or worse.
They're letting this marijuana and vape situation go out of control, and then the kids fall susceptible. The kids are doing it more than ever, and they feel like, marijuana is healthier, the vapes are healthier. The health effects that are going to happen on them haven't even been shown yet, but it's going to be much worse than we can imagine.
That's right. When they find a kid overdose on drug in school or something negative or really bad happened, that's when they might crack down to say, we did all these tests and found that the kid was overdosed. Rohini, thank you. She said gratitude is the best way to acknowledge your own feelings. Sano Juno and the famous John from Queens. You could read John comment.
Yeah, so John is talking about the mayor. I agree that the mayor is all over the place. You have the mayor who the other day makes a statement that migrants are going to destroy New York City. That's what he said the other day, right? Now, there's a lot to debate about that. But personally, I don't think that his comments were appropriate, especially because he's the one to blame for the crisis. He's the one saying free this, free that, free whatever. So that's what's going to bankrupt. It's not the individual migrant that is going to destroy the city. It's his policies that are going to it's his policies that are going to financially bankrupt the city by offering things the city can't afford. Say I come to your show, or I came to your studio today, Shanaz, and you said, Rusat, I'm going to give you free this, free that, free whatever. And then when I come and I claim all these free things from you, you say, well, this is going to destroy me. I can't afford this, right? That's what the mayor's doing. And instead of stopping it, he's continuing to give out these free things. But then when he was confronted, okay, so why aren't you talking about the Biden border policies that allow so many because you have 100,000 new migrants in New York over the past year. The mayor, instead of criticizing Biden, as John is mentioning there, the mayor says Trump is to blame. Well, Trump hasn't been president for 2.5 years, more than 2.5 years at this point. So you have to blame the current president is Biden. The current president is the one under which these border policies have happened that led to this influx. So Adams is playing politics on it. He's complaining about that this is going to destroy New York City when he's the one offering the free programs, and then he's blaming Trump when Biden's the president who's allowing these border policies to happen. So Adams, he's not, his priorities aren't in the right place. They're just all over the place. I mean,
or
frankly.
he's contradicting himself. John said these migrants with nowhere to stay, they are put up in hotels and living on the streets. Yeah, they are placing in very fancy places.
The Roosevelt Hotel, right? That's no,
Yes,
it's true.
yes, Crown Plaza, Roosevelt.
Instead, okay, so we knew that there were going to be influx of migrants. Instead of planning properly and saying, okay, we're going to have a mass center, this is where they're going to go, whatever. Adams rents out the most expensive hotel you could think of, the Roosevelt Hotel. That was idiocy to the highest degree. You can't even believe it. That's why I say, when you're running against these Democrats right now, the Democrat approval rating in New York is at a record low. It hasn't been this bad in terms of how much people are disaffected with the Democrats in a very long time. And the reason is you can't even make up how stupid some of their policies are. Like, for example, the issue I said earlier, the kids are failing in reading, failing in math, and the priority is more drag queen story hour for ages 3 through 8. You can't afford the migrant influx, but you're going to keep paying $12 billion over the next 3 years for free services. It just doesn't make sense. I wouldn't have a chance running against them if their policies weren't so stupid. You have a crime crisis, they want to defund the police even more. You have a crime crisis, they want to shut down the Rikers Island.
Guys, let's talk about our supermarket. I feel like it was brought to my attention that our supermarkets are not getting the freshest of vegetables, and this is for our consumption. This is for folks who are actually working and have to go purchase these things at the store. So now they're saying, okay, the food pantries are getting the fresher items. So what about us who are working, the middle class folks who are working? Do you feel like you're affected by this in your community? Have you attended a supermarket to see their quality of produce that they're offering?
Well, I look, to be honest with you, I go to the supermarket a lot, but I don't really buy fruits and vegetables too much. I have a very unhealthy diet. So I probably wouldn't notice that as much as people who do buy fruits and vegetables often. Usually when I go to the supermarket, it's a lot more soda, a lot less vegetables. So that's,
We're gonna change that.
So that's just me, right? But in terms of supermarket, going to the supermarket, everybody could see the inflation, the inflation
I
in
think it's
supermarkets.
400%.
Right? So you see that, for example, the price of eggs went up so much. Eggs is the most famous example, but the price of milk. I mean,
Well, let's go on the healthy side. I used to buy lettuce a lot.
Okay, so you see,
Lettuce was
I can
$1.50
say,
a head.
honestly
now
speaking,
it's only $4.50 per head.
Yeah, so I can say, I've
know.
never bought lettuce in my life because I don't like lettuce. Even when I go to McDonald's and I have a sandwich and it has lettuce in it, I pick the lettuce out.
I saw
hate
John
lettuce.
running earlier. I think he was running to Burger King, I believe,
Yeah, so.
Guys, thank you for joining us. Feel free to comment or give a question to Rusat because, the federal government has failed the United States of America. The president is responsible for the downfall of America. This guy is the biggest... Thank you, John, for your comment. But we want to make our community safe. And,
Yeah, John said he eats junk food too a lot. So, and look, when you're on the campaign trail, you don't have time to go cook lettuce and have a salad and whatever.
You don't have to cook it. You just have to chop it up and take it to go. Lettuce, tomato, cucumbers, chop some chicken inside. You get,
Yeah, I just go. I have my Coca-Cola and I'm ready to go.
So John, here you have a partner here. Hey, Sana Juna, good evening to you. So Rusat is standing for change because he lives in our community and he wants to see our kids, taken care of. When it comes to education, he feels that is priority. And I feel like politicians are the one campaigning or pushing to make everyone happy. Okay, your blue will make you happy. Your green will make you happy. You want to turn, into a drag queen, will make you happy as well.
There's two things on the education issue. The other day I was campaigning to stop in a bodega deli, and I was asking him I was at the store owner, how is the crime situation by you? How's the shoplifting? And he said it's so bad by him because he's right near the school. And it makes you think, I said earlier, education, everything else comes from education. So if you have a bad education system, the next criminals are coming from that. The 16-year-olds who are leaving the school an hour early who end up go shoplifting. So you can either have the next Bill Gates or you can have the next shoplifter from your school. It all depends on what education system are you having. And that's why we have to focus on it so much. Now, another thing I was going to say, another bodega that I stepped into and was asking him, how does he feel about certain issues? Because I like going around talking to people and hearing their feedback, what issues concern them.
Because you're a community person.
Exactly.
You want to represent our community.
Yeah, and I'm a people person. Something I hate is you have these politicians, right, who they walk around as if they're God. right?
Oh, they
And-
go for photo ops.
Right,
They
right,
will
yeah.
show up for
And
pictures.
They don't talk to the people. They don't like mix and mingle with them. They just have a 2-second photo with you, and then the people in our community treat them like God too, right? So the only thing
No,
they're missing-
bombard them with questions, as in, what
Yeah.
are you doing since you stepped into office? But
Yeah.
they use the office as a stepping stone to get to some other level. And we are worshiping them, as you said, making them God, treating them like highty-tighty,
Yeah.
and they're elevating themselves, and you are the one leaving at the bottom.
Yeah, exactly. And now with that too, I'm very disgusted with how a lot of these politicians are. But what I tell people is, because I hear a lot about people disgusted with this politician, I say to them, if you're disgusted with the politicians, there's 2 approaches you could have. You could either say, look, I'm disgusted with politics, I don't want to get involved. Or you can say, I'm disgusted, that's why I'm going to run and
And
replace
make
these
a
people
change.
and make sure that they're not the ones in there. I'm going to, whatever I saw that I didn't like with these politicians, I'm going to make sure I go in office, and I don't do that. I do the exact opposite.
You have to go out and hear what's going on in your community.
Yeah, so as I was saying, I was talking to this bodega owner, and his son was there at the same time. This was like right before school started back. And I was talking about the issues, how the math is bad, the reading is bad, but look at what they're prioritizing. And his son was, so he asked the kid, he said, are they teaching you this stuff in school? And the kid said, yes, they teach us, this drag queen. The kid was 7 years old. And they're teaching this controversy, and the father didn't even have any idea that they were teaching that to his son until we brought it up. So this stuff is going on without parental consent, without the parents being informed, and the father was so upset because he said he doesn't want his son learning. This father was Muslim, and he said right away that's haram to him. He doesn't want his kid 7 years old learning that stuff. Now it was very funny. He asked the kid, so what do you do when this stuff is being taught in school? And the kid said, well, I'm just playing on my phone anyway. So that was the
Hey,
phone.
Seasonal Trends, good evening to you. Thank you. I hope that is better. Hey, Samantha Polchan, how are you doing? Barbara Rambaran, good evening to you guys. We are waiting for your questions. If you're living in this community, Jamal Hassan, how are you doing? I thought New York was safe. Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much. Tyler is always great answering your questions.
I saw a comment earlier when you were doing the music. Someone was saying that they're watching from Enmore, and I was going to say that in terms of my family, my nana was originally from Enmore, Haslington. So that's
Tyler said he's from Enmore as well. His grandparents were from Enmore. And I'm hoping to visit my friends from Tyler. Hey, Hassan Abbas, how are you doing? Jamal Hassan, thank you very much for joining us. Hey, Fahima, good evening, good evening. Sometimes it's music, sometimes it's talk, but sometimes it gets bubble up and no one wants to say anything. But you have to say something. Hey, the beautiful Rihanna Umraul says Region 8.
That's where Kaiser Falls. Sorry.
That's right. Region 8, Patero, Superuni River. And I believe Tyler's mom also answered that question. So she is the winner. You guys are all winners. Thank you for knowing where Kaiser Fall is located in homeland Guyana. And yes, guys, we are waiting for your questions to ask. Auntie Nalini has been in our community for a long time. Yes. Veronica Jaglal also answered that question. I thought they said potato for a minute. So, good evening, good evening. Region 8, I believe. Hey, Dan, thank you. I never heard of that before. But everyone seems to know it's Region 8. The beautiful Kaichor Falls. And guess what? Should I take a helicopter ride around there? I definitely will. So, Rusat, we'll continue with the question right after this. Where is our beautiful Auntie Nafiza Noor? We are missing her on Shanaz Musical Sensation. Zarina Fashion 646-664-6239. nice. I love music as well. So they were in our community chat. We had someone complaining of music. And the person who's complaining a lot, I say, you know what? There's a lot of nursing homes also. You guys could go to a nursing home. Leave. You can't have one person spoil the whole community. Not because you don't like music, others doesn't like it. You can have one bad potato. And if everyone else is enjoying music, you know what? Check yourself into a nursing home.
With that, I'd say it's the same thing with politics here. You've had some people in this community who the reputation of politics or going into politics gets ruined because you had one bad potato or maybe a few bad potatoes.
Everyone feel like they should run, but what's the background? What's the education background? I know you're qualified, Rusat.
So what I meant in particular is like I go around and you meet people and they say, oh, I'm not interested in politics because of what this one did or what that one did. So you have one bad egg who ruins the whole mindset of politics in their mind, and they're just not interested after the fact. And we can't let that happen. We have to encourage a new look. Failures of the past don't have to be the promise of tomorrow. You can have a new generation of leadership. I always say our immigrant community, right? Every immigrant community that's come to New York over the years, the first few generations had it hard, but eventually the children, the grandchildren achieved that American dream. Like Rudy Giuliani and Mario Cuomo were the children and grandchildren of Italian immigrants, but they eventually became the mayor of New York, the governor of New York. That is something that we have to aspire to for our generation as well, the children, the grandchildren being the Caribbean immigrants or the West Indian immigrant community in general here. And there's no limit to what we can achieve. We have so many great, smart people, doctors, lawyers, businessmen, all engineers, all these things. Tyler does a wonderful job with computer, right? Computer science, and he also does things with NASA. We're doing things in all these fields, right? I have a legal education background also, but we haven't cracked that ceiling of politics yet. We have not got a single person in office yet to represent us politically.
Well,
and we need the political representation. All these others, people say, "Oh, I'm not interested in politics." Well, whether you're interested in politics or not, politics is touching you and touching your life.
Right.
And you need somebody at the table representing you.
And guess what? I was proud. Let me say big up to Lakshmi Singh and Padmini for that beautiful pageant they hosted last evening. And I believe one of the contestants was actually pursuing political science. So, you know, we need to empower our girls, and not just our girls, our guys as well, but our females. We need to boost them up. We need to bring out the best they can, because I think they had 9 contestants and you wouldn't believe. I'm sure you were mesmerized. You were out of words, you know.
I want to choose my words very carefully because I'm running for politics. I don't want to be commenting on.
They were all, very educated and self-driven.
So I was there last night because I always support everything Lakshmi does. For those who don't know, Lakshmi and I are related, and she's a wonderful person. She does so much great community work, so many different fields, and she's really pouring her heart out with this beauty pageant, and it's good to see it become a successful event. They had an event last night, a press event for the pageant, and the pageant itself will be October 8th. So Lakshmi and Padmini are doing a wonderful job. I hope people support them, what they're doing October 8th. They come out, it's going to be KISS Entertainment Lounge, right?
That's right. You will have some entertainment as well. I heard Savita Singh will be there, so guys, we're just letting it out there. Hey Jamal, how are you doing? Hassan, thank you. Bibi Hawk, Full Material, Ankaran, welcome. I haven't seen you in a long time. You're looking fabulous. Hey, sing along, sing. Good evening to you. Our
Imran.
host and host, Mr. Imran Ahmad. I believe you said earlier Imran posted an interview.
Yes.
So guys, after this program,
please check that out. Right?
And I'll attach that link in here as well, because I love his journalistic skills.
Yes.
You know, he comes
Imran
with all
is a great
the
talent in our
questions.
community.
You know,
Wonderful
he
guy.
comes with all the great questions. Hey, Sharon Backus, good evening to you. Rose Sohan, long time no see. Hope all is well. Imran, what's your question? Barbara Rambaran, how you doing? Good evening to you. Samantha Pulchan, seasonal trend. Thank you. We do have a little bit of music, but you know what? I felt like right now, everyone will share the crazy stuff as much as they don't like the politics. And where is this going when it comes to mental health? You know, what are we looking at? Are we looking for something that empower us and empower our community? Are we looking to share the nonsense?
Well, in terms of mental health and health in general, I talked about, what can the city council do with funding certain projects. The non-profit and the health fund, and they get on the other side of the banner compared to us. I suggest people drive on the other side of the banner. You'll see they have a brand new, two new health centers over there. Right? On the other side of the banner. Well, we don't have any proper dedicated health center here.
What resources do you think that we have in our community that offers for someone with mental health?
The truth is, it's very limited, right? And that's something that if I get in, we can fund those type of nonprofits, those type of projects more.
Let's say
right?
our
And
children,
just,
we found out one of our child is doing
yeah.
drugs, and we want to get them away from that.
Well,
Where can we,
yeah.
direct them to?
Well, there's certain groups that you get specified for like drug counseling, drug use, and you could try to access it through the schools as well. But what I would say in general with this community of mental health is that there is there's a certain taboo that people okay, you don't want to say, oh, this one's dealing with mental health or that. Whereas in other communities, they may be more open to saying it. In our community, it's like, oh, man, this one mad, that one mad, and people don't want to say.
They're ready to put a label on it.
Yeah, they put a label on it, and nobody then wants to admit that they have an issue or that they're dealing with something. So I think in our community, we also have to deal with that part.
I feel like it's very important. Everybody needs to speak to somebody. We all have things going on. That doesn't necessarily mean we need mental health. We just need to get it out there.
Well,
we just need not to bundle it up, and that's what we need counselors to speak to, so we don't take it out on your husband or take it out on your wives.
But and the other thing that in our community particularly, okay, you need someone to speak to. Sometimes you just need a trusted friend to speak to, right? But in our community, it's very rare to find that because this one's talking this one story with the other one, whatever. So who's your trusted friend today is spreading that as gossip the next day, and you can't really, and then that makes the mental health problem worse.
That is why we need professionals, and professionals are sworn, to keep the HIPAA law. You don't know, you are sworn to keep the HIPAA law. You cannot disclose anything that was on. What happened in here stays in here. That's kind of thing. So let's go with some music, and we'll wait for your questions. I can't wait for Imran question. What can Rusat do to make our community safer? John, you better be careful before they come into Howard Beach and name one of those streets, Rusat Ramgopal.
I'm not in the Howard Beach, so they can't be naming anything after me. And to be honest, I wouldn't want anything named after me. I do it.
You love Guyana, well, go back to Guyana. You love Trinidad, go back to Trinidad. This country was a better country before everybody wants to make it, bring their garbage into it. That's what I feel.
Look, at the end of the day, right? You want to show appreciation for how far the immigrant community has come. You have areas in Manhattan called Little Italy, right? You have Chinatown in both Manhattan and Queens. So I don't see anything wrong with calling it Little Guyana or focusing on that. But the problem is you can't just stop at that. In our community, we just focus on the stylistic. Oh, we got the name, and then we don't focus on the substantial issues in the community. So we got the name, but we don't focus at Liberty Avenue. We have trash on the street at a worse level than you ever seen before. It's so dirty,
so bad,
right? So we don't focus that the streets are dirty, the roads, the potholes, the education is bad, the safety is terrible, and we talk about safety. My opponent, I said, was someone who defund the police. The police need to be funded and need to be back. Now, I understand you were saying, well, like, okay, well, look, you don't believe police priorities are in the right place right now. And I think that one of the reasons for that is because the police, right now, they go after things that they can expend the resources on. Like, for example, in driving up to somebody's house, they shut off the music. That doesn't cost them much. But they don't go on the other issues because they don't feel backed up enough to go on the other issues. Because the politicians in New York haven't had their back in the past. the police went from 0 to 0 overnight in 2020, and they're not backed up on the drug issue. They're not backed up on quality of life crime issues. And it's not rocket science. We know this city under Giuliani, under Bloomberg, was a very safe, very clean city, and that was under Republican leadership. So it's not something that, it's out of this world. We lived it, right? Everybody listening here knows what it was like living in New York under Bloomberg and under Giuliani. It was a much cleaner, much safer city than it is today. So all the other issues, school safety, public safety, everything in general goes back to that. I was a school student during the Bloomberg years. You weren't afraid to go to school during the Bloomberg years. It was a very safe city.
Well, good evening to Mr. Shazad. How are you doing? And not forgetting my handsome friend, Mr. Robert. How are you, Mr. Robert? Thank you for joining us. You said we have to pay attention to our kids, and the values starts at home, right? So if your parents, if the cost of living is so expensive right now, both parents need to work 16 hours, 17 hours for a day. Who's spending that quality time with our kids?
Well, so I think that is one of the unfortunate causes of what we see now, and I would say that that's an area where grandparents have to help fill that void. Right, if it's a tough time, your parents have to work odd hours. Your son has more than one job.
Bring back affordable living.
Right. But not
just housing, but affordable living for the working class.
Yeah, no. So it would be easy for me as a politician to go say, yeah, affordable living. But as I said earlier, I'm somebody, I talk about what I can do, right? So I'm not just going to go and say, well, I'll promise affordable living. And that's, as one city councilman, I can't just wave a magic wand and say affordable living. Obviously, that's something you want to work towards, in other issues. But so that's why I didn't just say, yeah, affordable living. But I can speak from my own personal experience. I had a very disruptive family life growing up. I come from a broken home situation, and I don't talk about a lot of people don't know it. But
very well, thanks to your grandparents.
Yeah, and that's why I say from personal experience, I think where you don't necessarily have to, you through various reasons, the parents aren't able to be at the dinner table with you. That's where the grandparents can fill that void. And I wouldn't be the person I am today if it wasn't for my nanny on my mom's side, especially taking a more active role in raising me and imparting certain values on me. As I talk about, education. Growing up, I would be doing my homework and whatever. And my nanny, who she was a Guyanese of that generation, she, as a woman particularly, she didn't get to have much education, but it's still important. Education, and you make sure you do that homework, watch you do it, and whatever. So sometimes, you may not have the parents at the dinner table, but that's why I encourage the grandparents to take up that role as well.
If we have affordable living, our parents wouldn't. I see my kids are in school and they say, Mom, you guys spend so much time with us. We go on trips, we go to dinners, but not a lot of kids in my class get to enjoy those opportunities because their parents are working very hard. Because I have nurses who are working very hard to make ends meet, paying their rent, paying their groceries, paying their car insurance. I'm just putting out there. I'm not expecting Rusat to.
Look, I was just going to say that on the cost of living issue, one of the things that have led to the increased inflation is reckless spending policies. This city and this current government, federally and state level and locally, has spent so much money, and it's contributed to inflation. You have to cut the reckless spending, and you can help cut inflation from that, and it help affect the cost of living in that sense. But back to what I was saying in terms of the grandparent issue, I would say, we have a lot of people in our community in their 50s, 60s who are either new grandparents or about to be grandparents. I'd encourage them, if there ever becomes a time where that grandkid of yours is not getting the proper support that they should be getting from their parents, and don't say, oh well, not me picnic, not my business, right? Grandparents
are a big
have to
part
go
of our children, and they're.
spend-
I told my in-laws, feel free to discipline my kids because my kids are your grandkids, and if they come out bad, they're a reflection of you. So feel free to spank them because I do believe in spanking.
So Imran, right? He touches on an issue that we spoke about a bit in my interview with him. So we talked about the fact that you have crime stats, but at the same time you also have underreported crime because of this shift in attitude, right? 2020 had defund the police, and since then you've had an uptick in certain crime, but then the police aren't backed by the progressive prosecutors, so then they don't end up going after certain crimes much. Now I'll give you an exact example of this, right? So as I say, I talk to store owners a lot, right? Especially on the issue of shoplifting, and you have some store owners who say, I deal with it so many times a day that in the past, we were say like 5 years ago, I'd call on the police for this. It happened so many times, and the police don't do anything now because they're not being backed up by the DA to do it, right? So it's no use even calling the police to do anything because nothing's going to happen. That's why you have these stories of these shoplifters in the New York Post. They do it like there's people who've done shoplifting 100 times a year and things like that. So the issues like petty theft, shoplifting, it goes underreported now because the store owners aren't reporting as much as they would in the past because the police aren't being backed up. So it's kind of like it's an issue where one thing leads to the other, right? If you restore the police funding to where it was before this 2020 defund the police nonsense,
you'll have better service.
And you also make sure that politicians are in power, are backing the police and saying, yes, we are backing up, you have the resources, go after these crimes like you used to before 2020, then you will have the shift in attitude as well, where people will then feel, our police are once again being backed up by the politicians, so yes, we could report these crimes again. Police will go after these quality of life crimes again in a way that unfortunately hasn't been gone after between 2020 and 2023, but like was gone after in between the Giuliani years 93 all the way up to, quite frankly, the beginning of the de Blasio years. So there's a good 20-year period where we had a safe, clean city because those quality of life crimes went after, and we have to go back to that. So so Imran said both Mayor Bloomberg and Giuliani have been criticized. If you could go back to Imran's comment. So you said both Mayor Bloomberg and Giuliani have been criticized for stop, question, and frisk policy. You said, do you believe those policies were effective? So I would differentiate that. So Mayor Bloomberg instituted a stop and frisk policy that was eventually ruled unconstitutional. Giuliani did not do stop and frisk as Bloomberg did. Now you have the whole issue of Terry stop. As I said, I have my legal education. A Terry stop, stop and a pat down. That is constitutional once the police meet a certain bar. What Bloomberg did that went to another level, and I think what Bloomberg did was it went to another, and it became a very wrong policy. Under the Bloomberg years and going after crime, they ended up giving quotas, and they said the police had to do a certain amount of stop and frisk, and it ended up being unconstitutional. They were unfairly targeting minorities, especially young minority men, and that was wrong. Bloomberg took it to a level that was wrong. However, in the Giuliani years, it was not unconstitutional. Giuliani did it in a way that was never ruled unconstitutional by any court. And if you look at it, was it effective? The Giuliani years, yes, it was effective. The way Giuliani handled crime in this city was effective. Broken windows here was effective. However, what Bloomberg did, while effective, was unconstitutional. So what Bloomberg did ended up being wrong in the end. So in particular with crime, I'd say if you go back to the Giuliani-Bratton era of crime policy, that is what I'd want to emulate. So Imran is right to talk about Bloomberg and stop, question, frisk. There are things that Bloomberg did that should not be emulated, that were wrong, and should not be done, right? But I wouldn't put Bloomberg and Giuliani in the same category. What Giuliani did was never ruled unconstitutional. What Bloomberg did was eventually ruled unconstitutional. I think Imran had another comment after that.
Hey, Mr. B. Ram Jairam, good evening to you. Good evening to my beautiful mom. Let's see, Imran Ahmad said, while affordable living thought to be an aim of politicians, they are a negative aspect of the government intervention in the terms of rental assistance.
Yeah, and so Bibi Muhammad had a call them when you neighbor playing
call
music.
Call them when your neighbor is playing loud music.
So that's the point that I'm saying with Shanaz, that yes, the police will do that because it doesn't cost them anything to do that, right? They'll just drive down.
They look good. They're doing their job.
Right.
Call them 10 times. They're coming out to do their job.
They'll come down. They'll just say, got to shut down the music. It doesn't cost them anything. Whereas going after the more serious issues, the drugs, other issues, it costs them money and resources. And then they don't do that because they don't feel like they're being backed up on the other end by the politicians and the DAs to go after that. So that's why you will see that discrepancy. And I can understand why people feel like, oh, well, why is the police going after this and not that? Well, it's because this one costs less to go after than that. Now, Imran is right that where government intervenes in certain aspects of the economy, it can have negative effects and unintended consequences after. Like, I mean, like, for example, if you look at this city and the way this city has done rent-controlled apartments for years, it's ended up that a lot of the people who have rent-controlled apartments aren't the people who need rent-controlled apartments. And a lot of the people who need affordable housing are not the ones getting the rent-controlled apartments.
So what are they allowed to raise the rent for annually? 3%?
Well, they raised it recently in this year. They hadn't raised it for a little while, and they raised it this year. But even these rent
well, they had to raise the rent because guess what? Water rates went up, light bill went up, gas went up, so everything else went up. So how do you expect your landlord to be paying this, covering that expense?
So rent control apartments are separate from like the regular landlord apartments. So I was speaking about rent control apartments, well, the landlord issue goes to nothing. Right now in this city, in this state, the tenants have more rights than the landlords. Ever since the Cuomo policies that were continued by Hochul was, the freeze on eviction during COVID. But my mom was a small-time landlord, and she had these tenants who just stopped paying rent, and it took 3 years to get them out. So this,
I know a lot of folks like that.
So exactly, a lot of people like that, and that's the nonsense thing of these Democrats, that they just sympathize with the tenants, give them all these rights.
You go to court, and guess what? You get 3 more months.
Exactly.
Find a place.
Yeah. And they come with all these excuses, and
when you're late 1 month or 2 months on your mortgage,
exactly.
you get foreclosed. So the system is not working.
Yeah, so that's why I talked to a lot of people. They say yesterday there was a guy who told me, he said he's never being a landlord again in New York. It's not worth it. He said he has properties in Florida. He's going to keep renting those out in Florida because you can evict if a tenant's not paying rent in Florida. You can evict them like that. But in New York, in New York, you can't do that anymore.
Evict them and send them to New York. Hey guys, let's read why Imran asked is. Why I ask about stop and frisk is that I have policies. My beautiful aunt, Bibi Abraham, good evening to you. And I could see the folks who are locked in care about community, and others might be watching a live who's, they're cursing out somebody or talking about somebody's neighbor. But what's happening in your community, they wouldn't join the conversation, they wouldn't share, they wouldn't go out and vote, but they'll go on. I see it, the Facebook one. I happened to stop on somebody's video because it was so much chaos going on. And I see so many ladies partaking and they want to know what's going on. Ask them what's going on in their community. They have no idea. But ask them what's going on in Guyana. That's another problem. So this is a question for you from Imran. Rusat, here is a question that we didn't discuss in our interview. What is your take on squatters' rights?
I don't support squatters, and I don't support their rights. So it's as simple as that. I think that's something that has to be gone after. But I would say at the same time, I'm in the city council. I'd be one of many people. And when you have so many progressive Democrats on this city council who believe in squatters' rights, who believe in that tenants should have more rights than the landlord, it's going to be hard to get that changed. So while I support changing the squatters' rights to make sure that they don't have all the rights that they have right now, it's going to be an uphill battle because you have so many radical progressive Democrats in the city council right now who are giving them more rights than they ever should have been afforded. Imran is saying also that he talks about stop and frisk policies, that he believes that certain officers would have been alive today if not for the certain policies that he had. And as I say, I believe that there should be tough on crime policies like there were in the Giuliani years. What I'm saying about stop and frisk is to the extent that it became unconstitutional under Bloomberg, that should not be repeated.
I feel like because they were just stopping and frisking certain people.
So what happened under the Bloomberg years is they set a quota. They end up stopping frisking just such a high amount of people then you had officers end up unfairly targeting certain groups. And the Bloomberg it went off course. And you have to be willing to say when a certain policy goes off course. So under the Giuliani years, it was fine but the Bloomberg years went off course. I would want to restore the stop and frisk policies in the sense of what Giuliani was doing, but not what Bloomberg ended up doing that went unconstitutional. So you wouldn't go under the way that was done unconstitutionally. You'd want to go after the way that was done that respects constitutional rights to the same thing. So what was the next question?
Mr. Mohammed Fayaz said, good night, Rusat, and all the best with your campaign. Andrew Abraham, long time no see, a wonderful photographer indeed. Samantha Polcham, good evening to you. Chris, how are you doing? Bibi Rambaran, Sharon Bacchus, Rose Sohan, all you wonderful folks locked in. I hope you guys are related, or you can relate into your community see what's going on, because guess what? A patient approached me today and she said, what happened about having a bench in front of the office? I said, ma'am, we removed that bench because it becomes squatters. You can't get them out of there, and it's actually for our patients to sit on. But then squatters come there. And
Imran talks about the city under the previous mayor went lenient with squatters. So a lot of the problems that are going on now that are continued and exacerbated by Adams and the current city council initially started going haywire because of the de Blasio years. It took a while to ruin something good. Giuliani and Bloomberg left the city in a very good place, but de Blasio did ruin it over time. And yes, the mayor de Blasio had some very lenient policies. Imran is right on that with regards to this tenant issue and also squatters. So de Blasio is where it started going off course. It's just continued going off course since then. And also back to the policing issue. I mean, it was under de Blasio that you had that incident where when 2 cops were killed. De Blasio at the time was the one who was engaging in anti-police rhetoric way before 2020, and that's why the cops turned their back on him famously at that funeral. So the cops haven't had a mayor or leading politicians back them up for a while in New York City, and that's why we are where we are right now. So we need to revert back to, as I said, the Giuliani era policies. Not de Blasio, not Adams. We need more Giuliani-style common sense Republican leadership in New York City.
So guys, I'm sure you guys are thinking and comparing time that you lived in NYC and whose leadership was better. Michael Bloomberg, Mayor Giuliani. You know, we would love to hear your comments. Andrew, thank you very much for making the time.
One thing I'll just say very clearly, because I do get in trouble sometimes when I often say, we need, something like when Mayor Giuliani was mayor of New York. People misinterpret and say, oh, well, look at Giuliani now. Look. I'm not talking about what Giuliani is doing right now. I'm talking about what Giuliani did when he was the mayor of New York. And quite frankly, I think he was the greatest mayor that the city ever had. What he did, I don't think that leadership has been matched since then. So Mayor Giuliani, whatever you think of Rudy Giuliani of today and what he's done in recent years, he was America's mayor for a reason. He was the greatest mayor the city had. He was the mayor who led us after 9/11 in recovering from the worst terrorist attack in history. And he's the mayor who cleaned up New York City. So
I think he did a fantastic job. Hey, good evening to my beautiful mom, Bibi Mohammed, Sissel Rampasad, Imran Ahmad. Thank you, Mr. Biram Jairam. Thank you guys for sharing the link as well. Mr. Mohammed Fayaz have a question. New York need to reform.
Yeah. So you need a reform committee, but unfortunately, these committees they have the people who they put on these committees to do the reforms. Who's appointing those people? And it's the people in charge appointing those people, and the reforms end up getting worse over time. Like the decision to close down Rikers was done with a committee who suggested reforming that because it was the radicals in charge of the city government who put more radical people on those committees. So we have to have reforms, but we have to have the right people on those committees suggesting those reforms. Yeah, and as John from Queens is right. Let's just start with keeping criminals in jail. Criminals should be in jail, not on the streets.
Hey, Sheila Danraj, good evening to you. Bibi Sarah, how are you? John from Queens, thank you.
There was something on cleanliness in the community.
Our community need a cleanup. They really need a cleanup.
Okay. Yeah.
And then again, you see our community also bringing the bad habits from wherever they're coming from, dropping things, wherever they feel
we look, again, there's a certain amount that the city has failed us, but there's a certain amount that we're failing ourselves too. Like you compare this neighborhood to other neighborhoods, you look at Forest Hills, you look at Howard Beach, you look even, say, on the other side of the Van Wyck, it's so much cleaner than our area. And yes, a certain amount of it is because the city isn't taking care of our sanitation, the city isn't taking care of of us the way they used to. But also, it is because we are polluting our own area. We're treating our own area like trash. So if we treat ourselves like trash, we treat our own community like trash, the city's going to treat us like trash too. So we have to start picking up our own
they'll be like,
standards.
I'll clean it today, tomorrow they'll make it dirty again. So just let's leave it alone. So
and
guys,
also I think
to make a difference.
I think a lot of outdoor dining led to a lot of trash on the streets of Liberty Avenue. And outdoor dining, it can be a very classy thing, but it could also be a very disruptive thing. You walk down Liberty Avenue, it's like an open rum shop in some of these places, and you have to trash out there.
At least you walk down. I don't even want to tend to go towards
I walk everywhere in this community. That's why I see the issues firsthand. And you have the trash out, and it's there till like 2 a.m. in the morning, and then you have rats go on it.
I believe these businesses need to get tickets for putting out their garbage.
And also, we need more proper. And we have the city is instituting new designs of trash cans that make it harder for the rats to go in. We need more of those in this area on Liberty Avenue, because right now you have relatively few trash cans for a very busy avenue, and then the trash cans get piled up, and then when they're piled up easily, you have more trash falling over on the streets, and then you have I mean, it's terrible, and that's why you need somebody in there who actually sees this going on, who can address it if they go in. The current city councilwoman, she doesn't walk Liberty Avenue. She hasn't seen that. I mean, she just stays in her area in Rochdale and just focuses on them without focusing on us. And we got to focus on ourselves too and make sure we have our voices heard in this election.
Yeah, if they do a good job cleaning up our area, we have to maintain it. You know, it doesn't go back into a cycle. Mr. Mohammed Fayaz said this guy would do a great job for New York. His vision will help.
Imran said, thank you so much for that kind comment to Mr. Mohammed Fayaz. I really appreciate it. Imran said, if elected, would you criminalize defecating on the sidewalk in your district? Absolutely, we need to go after. You know, and Imran said earlier about the previous mayor allowed certain things to go. So the previous mayor was the one who, de Blasio was the one who allowed public urination to effectively get decriminalized. Nobody used to pee, and in some cases, number 2, on the streets of New York. New York has become like San Francisco and worse in some cases. You have people urinating with no shame, and in some cases, sadly, even defecating on the street. That needs to be criminalized and gone after. If you don't have clean streets, if you don't respect your streets, everything else falls from there. So we have to clean up with sanitation, and especially, as Imran said, we have to go back after these things like. I mean, you can't even believe you have to say it, but yeah, defecating in public and pooing and leaving that. We're not talking about dog poo. We're talking about human poo on the streets should not be allowed. And there were
that
other
is because
things.
they're influenced. So that's a cycle. It happens because they're too high on something.
Yeah.
So we need to stop all these smoke shops that's popping up in front of our, the schools. John from Queens says Giuliani did not do anything wrong. He is being set up for voters fraud.
Look, I mean, people will have their opinions on Giuliani. I think it's very sad that they're going after Giuliani because my personal opinion is, it's even if someone ends up going down a certain path in life later, I think you need to look at the totality of their life. And Rudy Giuliani is somebody who had a very unique life, and he gave a lot to this city. This city would not be what it was without Rudy Giuliani. He went after the mob. He went after Wall Street.
There is no safety right now.
He cleaned up New York City. He led us after 9/11. I think that you have to look at the totality of the circumstances and the way that the prosecutors in Georgia have gone after him and totally ignoring what this man did for this country and the city throughout the rest of his life. It's very sad to see the way they're going after Giuliani. And I've heard a lot of people, even people who are Democrats, who look at what's going on with Giuliani and they say...
That's another thing I want to speak of because certain folks feel like, okay, I'm a registered Democrat, I'm a registered Republic, I have to vote straight down there.
No,
look at your candidates, see what they stand for and vote. You don't have to vote straight Democrat.
So there's a couple things I want to say. That number one, no matter how you're registered, once you go in that voting booth, you could vote anyway. You could vote Republican, Democrat, Independent. And I'm on both the Republican and Independent line. So what Bloomberg did back in the day, on both the Republican and Independent lines. The Independent Common Sense line, you'll see when you go in the voting booth. But you can also just vote for me on the regular Republican line, but I'm also on the Independent line because, you have some people who, they're like, I'm fed up with the Democrats, but I'm not going to vote Republican, so I'll just vote for you on the Independent line. So
or I'll not vote at all.
Well, please just vote. Vote for Rusat. Vote for change. Don't complain if you don't vote. Don't complain November 8th if you didn't vote November 7th. And we talk that issue of top down, right? In a normal year, it'd be very hard for me to win because of that top-down issue. You have people who they'll go in the voting booth and they'll just vote top-down, Democrat all the way down, on the Democrat line. But this year, you don't have any president race, you don't have any mayor race, and you don't have any governor race. So there's nothing at the top for them to vote down. You just have the local election. You just have the city council election, really. So when you go and you vote, there's no top-down. You just vote city council. It's going to say Adrian Adams, Democrat, Rusat Ramgopal, Independent Common Sense, Rusat Ramgopal, Republican. You just vote Rusat Ramgopal. And it doesn't matter if you vote for me on the Independent line or if you vote for me on the Republican line, I'm still getting the vote no matter what. They just tally it up at the end. So, and when Bloomberg won the first time in New York, he actually had less votes as a Republican than his opponent as a Democrat, but the votes that he got on the Independent line took him over the top in the end. So that may end up playing out here.
Hey, Padma Singh, good evening to you. Thank you guys for joining us. And yes, we are talking with Mr. Rusat Ramgopal, who is running for City Council. And yes, it is in District 28, I believe. And District 28 comes from what area?
So District 28 is 100th Street to Guy Brewer, Liberty to the Belt.
Guys, if you're in that area, go out there and support this handsome, intelligent young man who is striving for a difference in our community. He would like to see our community elevating to the top and be one of the best community to live in. You know, you want to move to NYC Queens.
We need a community that we can be proud of. As I said, we compare. Look, Forest Hills. People are proud to live in Forest Hills. People are proud to be in Howard Beach. Nobody's proud of our area anymore because we've let it degrade over time. As I said, they've improved the ghettos, but we've become a ghetto. That's why you have people who can afford it. They're going out to Howard. They're going out to Long Island. They're going out to Florida. And the schools are another issue that leads to that because they say, oh well, the schools are failing here, so I'm going to go to Long Island. My kids will have better school there. We have to fix. There's only one New York City.
Don't run away from it because someone else will be, paying the price. And for parents out there, it's good to see what the curriculum is in your, child's school, see what they're teaching them, and get involved. Know what they're teaching them. Am I right?
Yeah, exactly. And I gave the example earlier, the father who didn't know that these controversial, drag queen topics were being taught to his 7-year-old. You should know what's being taught in your kid's school, and we have to go back to the basics. When I was growing up, my parents used to say, you go to school, you focus on reading, writing, arithmetic, right? You have to go back to that. You focus on the basics. You go for math, reading, science, history. You don't go for
drag queen competition. Yeah. And what's selling in Walmart right now.
It's crazy that you even have to say that. But literally, all I'm saying is let's go back to how it was 5 years ago. It was so much more normal then. All these. People look at me like I'm the crazy one sometimes when I say we don't need drag queens.
Let's make America great again. I know.
Well, that's somebody else's slogan, not mine.
That's mine.
Yeah.
I would really like to see our country a little bit, cleaner and tidier, a little improved, and folks working less.
Yeah.
Less hours.
Yeah. No, but I want to say on that. Look, personally, there'll be people in this community. I don't personally. You can vote whatever way you want next year. Next year, the presidential race. That doesn't bother me. I'm focused on this race. I'm focused on the local election here because that's what affects our quality of life here. So you could have whatever opinion you want on this president or that president or whatever. Focus on the local issues. Focus on your local election because that's where the changes are made. Somebody earlier was commenting on Guyana. We have people in this community who are more focused on local government elections in Guyana than they are on their own local elections where they live in Ozone Park. It's quite sad to see.
Yeah, we live here. You want to clean it up. You want to make it better. You want to make it safer for our children. Let's go back to the music, and we will be right back with conversating with Mr. Rusat Ramgopal, who is standing for change in our community.
Personally, I love old Bollywood songs more than the new ones. The old Bollywood songs is what I listen to all the time. When I'm in the shower, that's what I have playing.
Oldies are goldies. Guys, thank you for joining us. Thank you. Sano Juno, Tyler, thank you for your love and support always. Thank you guys for sharing the link. Let's see. We want to wrap up. We want you guys to hear all that he stands for. Seasonal Trend, good night to you. Auntie Nafisa Noor, good night to you as well. Partner, how you're doing? I hope everyone is well.
Auntie Padma, yeah.
You want to say hello?
Yeah, Auntie Padma is always a great supporter of mine, so thanks, Auntie Padma, for tuning in.
And for all of you who are, following the Nonsense 2023 pageant, that will be holding at
it's a Kiss on October 8th, and for all those who support the great things that Lakshmi does in this community, I think. I know I'll be there for sure October 8th, so I encourage others to come out.
Pageant. And Mr. Rusat, tell us what you stand for in our community. Stand for change. Let us know some of those changes that you would like to see.
At the end of the day, I say vote for change, vote for Rusat. If you see what's going on in the city right now, you see how it's declined over the past few years. We need change in the city council. We have a city councilwoman who's been there for 2 terms, and she's done nothing for our community, but in exchange, she's defunded our police. She wants to defund them again if she has another term. She wants to shut down Rikers Island, and she supports, instead of focusing on fixing the basics, the math and reading in the public schools, she's more focused on injecting controversial topics like drag queen story hour for ages 3 through 8. I believe we need change. You have to get back to the basics. As I say, I focus on the local issues, your education. Our schools, our public schools have been failing. People, sometimes they say my youth, I'm so young. My youth is an advantage here because I remember what it's like to be in the school. She's 62 years old. God knows when last she's been in the public school. I know what it's like to be in the public schools. I know what they need to fix it. I'm young enough to remember that. I'm young enough to know how to fix it.
As I said, we need young blood.
Yeah, we need a new generation. Look, Mitt Romney announced yesterday he'll be stepping aside from a long career in politics. And he said, we need a new generation. We do. And we need to give a new generation a chance. You have a new generation running now. I hope you give me a chance this November. So as I said, the issues. education. We have to focus on going back to the basics, because from education, all else follows, right? If that kid can do reading and math properly now, they're going to become the next doctors, the next lawyers, the next, right? Exactly. And they're not going to become the next criminals if they're doing well in school. The other issues, sanitation. We have to focus on the sanitation. As we see Liberty Avenue, look how dirty it is. We need more sanitation services in this area. A city council person can direct discretionary funding, so you have proper services. Seniors, nonprofits, all that has been going on the other side of the Van Wyck and helping them instead of helping us. We need to redistribute that funding. We need to finally get a voice in there for us at the table, because for the past 3 decades, it's just been a Democrat from the other side of the Van Wyck prioritizing them, and we get nothing in return. Our community, we love to complain. But we don't go out and vote. So it's no use complaining if you don't vote. Go out there, vote for change. And again, I'm running for city council. I talk about these local issues. I'm around there in the community. I'm sure many of you watching have seen me around. If you haven't seen me around, I'm glad you saw me tonight. I look forward to hopefully seeing you in person at some event. The election is November 7th. We have to up the turnout in this community. The last election, this community, we had a 22% turnout on this side of the Van Wyck. They had a 53% turnout on the other side of the Van Wyck. So even though we have more voters here, if 22% of us turn out and 53% of them turn out, who's going to win? We have to up our turnout. I think this year we have a very good chance. I'm going around, we're getting a lot of support. And from now to election, we're just going to keep building that support, building that momentum. The election day is November 7th. The early voting is October 28th to November 5th at the casino, as I said earlier. Then November 7th, the election day is at the schools. We have a couple of events coming up. October 1st, we have an event at Villa Russo. Everybody's invited to come there. And we'll have another one October 29th at Fairfield Pavilion. And also the election night, November 7th, we will be having an event at Rockaway Roti Shop. So we have a lot of events coming up that I encourage people to look out for and come to. And again, vote for change, vote for Rusat. The basic issues affecting life. Okay, if you look at what's going on in the city now and you're happy, which I don't think many people are happy, then yeah, you keep the same leadership. If you look at what's going on and you're not happy, you got to vote for change. And you can't have change or expect change if you just don't vote, or if you do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. This lady, she's been there for 2 terms. I met a guy today. He said, oh, he votes Democrat no matter what. And I told him very clearly, if you're just going to vote Democrat no matter what, then don't complain at the end of the day. The definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. You have to try something different. I'm running this year as a fresh candidate, offering a new generation thinking. I'm on both the independent lines and the Republican lines. Every bit of support is appreciated. Thank you to all those who tuned in tonight, who joined in the comment section. I really appreciate everything. Auntie Gayatri commented just now. Thank you, Auntie Gayatri. All the support is really appreciated. So thank you so much. And thanks again to Ms. Shanaz Hussain, who did a wonderful job with this program. And it's always a joy to be in her presence and be on this program. So thank you so much again, Shanaz.
No worries. How can we find you guys? You can find him on Facebook, Rusat Ramgopal. Rusat for New York at gmail.com. That is Rusat for New York at gmail.com. If you would like to send him an email or inbox him.
Yeah, so all for these cards are going around the community, and if you see it, I'll just say the card has everything about my contact information. The email is rusatfornewyork at gmail.com. The phone numbers are there, 646-436-4295. And the Instagram, Rusat for New York. The Facebook, Rusat Ramgopal. And very importantly, the name, right? Rusat, right? USA right in the middle. I always tell that as a funny story. People always say Rusat, it's an unusual name. It was picked by Pandits Rudra and Pandit Boj, and they said the name had to start with RU. They helped my parents. They picked Rusat, and you had USA right in the middle. So it was a perfect name for politics in the end. And the last name, Ramgopal, has GOP right in the middle too. So look how that worked out.
John have a great comment. John said, if you're voting Democrat, you must not be feeling the inflation that's going on right now. So with all the things that's happening, if you're still voting Democrat, you are not feeling what's going on.
Yeah, actually, I had a conversation last night with somebody. It was actually at Lakshmi's beauty pageant. One guy said, I'm going to vote for you. You got to vote Republican this year. What's going on now is crazy. And the guy next to him said, I'm a Democrat. I'll never vote for Republican. And
continue voting for,
And the guy, I didn't even have this. The guy next to him said, well, keep voting that way. Soon you're not even going to have a house.
Well said. Yeah. Well, guys, if you want change.
John also said, are you friendly with the local Indo-Caribbean Democrats? I think we're getting a lot of support from Indo-Caribbean Democrats. Obviously, there are going to be some who keep, going their way no matter what. But I think there's a lot of people who, I'll explain it this way. One of my Republican inspirations was Ronald Reagan. And Ronald Reagan had this story that he would tell, because Reagan was able to convince a lot of Democrats to come over and vote for him. They were called Reagan Democrats. And Reagan had a way with jokes that he would tell these stories. One of the stories he told is he went to county convention center one time, and he saw this kid selling Democrat puppies, and 2 weeks later he came back to the same site, and the kid was selling Republican puppies, and he said to the kid, what happened? 2 weeks ago these are Democrat puppies, now these are Republican puppies, and the kid said, well, sir, now the puppy's eyes have opened. I think that's going on in this community. There are a lot of people who were Democrats, but now their eyes are opening and they're willing to vote for change and vote for Rusat this November.
That's right. We're not, binded by the pen and the paper to go straight down Democrat. You vote, you read up on your candidate before you go in the voting pool, and, vote wisely, because your vote matters. Your vote is your voice, as I always say. Well, Rusat, thank you for coming out. Thank you guys for supporting him. Go on his Facebook page, Rusat Ramgopal, and see what he stands for. Read up on a little bit, and you will be surprised that he is full of wisdom. The guy to take our community to the next level, and we look forward in getting up there. Thank you, Rusat, for stopping by. Good luck.
And we'll be back one more time before the
yes,
election,
we definitely.
right?
He is always welcome when it comes to change. We stand for change. You're watching Shanaz Musical Sensation on the famous John from Queens YouTube channel. Continue supporting our #1 YouTuber, John from Queens. I'm yours truly, Shanaz Hussein.